Murray was that crazy English hoodlum. He was a part of the biggest bank robbery in like the history of Great Britain.
6 men, some of them masked and armed with handguns.
This is planned and executed with military precision.
When he announced that final figure of £53 million, everyone's jaws just dropped.
What happened in that famous street fight?
Which one?
Lee Murray.
I'll fight anybody, I don't care who they are, I will fight them. I'm not scared of no man.
Lee Murray is one of the most legit gangsters of all time.
You can't put me down, you've got to kill me, stop me. I will keep going and going and going, there will always be a fight and I will always fight.
In the octagon, Lee Murray fought like a man possessed. His early wins on the regional MMA circuit led to a call-up to the big time. And with his 2004 UFC fight against Jorge Rivera, which he won in the first round by armbar, he scored the standout victory of his career. At the peak of his powers, this promising fighter took the great Anderson the Spider Silva to the limit, narrowly losing their 3-round battle by a decision. Then, it all came crumbling down. A descent into criminality blighted the ferocious fighter's career. And far from leaving his mark on the sport of MMA, he would end up leaving a far darker mark as the perpetrator of the biggest cash robbery in British history. This is the story of how Lee Murray went from the top MMA prospect in Britain to an armed robbery mastermind. Born to a British mother and Moroccan father in 1977, Lee Brahim Murray Lamrani grew up on the Barnfield estate of Woolwich in southeast London. A slim and scrappy child, Murray got his first taste of criminal life as a teenager when he joined a local gang named the Barney Boys. Criminal convictions followed, with Murray spending time in the Feltham Young Offender Institution for dealing crack cocaine and marijuana. It seems likely that the young Murray would have been trapped in a life of crime if not for his natural gift for fighting. A veteran of over 100 street fights before the end of his teens, Murray's later nickname of Lightning offers a clue to the rapid punching power that would be the hallmark of his MMA career. Though he had a natural gift for fighting, Murray was far from untrained. He developed his early arsenal of skills at the Peacock Gym. Owned by the notorious Bowers brothers, who some refer to as modern-day Craze, the gym was as much a front for planning robberies as it was for training fighters. Nevertheless, Murray's burgeoning talents suggested that he could have a real future in the fight game. He started taking MMA fights on the British regional circuit, achieving wins in his first 3 fights in organisations like Ring of Truth and Extreme Challenge. A loss by submission to a journeyman fighter named Joe Dorkson in his 4th fight was an early black mark on his record. But Murray would bounce back in style, picking up knockout wins against other up-and-comers, including a remarkable 4-second knockout of Amir Ranavadi. Lee Lightning Murray was living up to his name, with most of his fights not getting past the first round. And the stir he caused didn't go unnoticed. In 2004, he hit the big time with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. The event was UFC 46, and Murray's opponent was Jorge Rivera. The man known as El Conquistador was almost as much of a UFC novice as Murray, with Rivera having only had a single fight in the promotion before he stepped into the cage to face Lightning Lee. With the bright lights of the world's largest MMA promotion shining down on them, Murray and Rivera set a frantic early pace. Rivera came out on top initially, managing to take Murray down to the canvas in less than a minute. Undeterred, Murray showed a new side to his game, throwing up a triangle armbar to land the submission victory at 1:45 of the first round. Murray was victorious in his first UFC fight, but sadly, that victory wouldn't lead to a long and successful career as one of the promotion's leading middleweights. Details aren't forthcoming on why the UFC chose not to welcome Murray for a second fight in the promotion, though UFC owner Dana White is on record as saying that Murray was a scary son of a bitch, and I don't mean fighter-wise.
You realize how easy it is to die if some dudes wanted to kill you? He wasn't the same.
Perhaps White had a gut feeling about Murray that steered him away from the fighter, though the battle against Rivera wouldn't be the last time viewers saw Lightning Lee in the cage. Anderson Silva is a UFC legend. Following a meteoric rise through the UFC ranks, culminating in the dethroning of the middleweight champion Rich Franklin, Silva embarked on a record-breaking run of title defenses that cemented him as an MMA great. Before that run, the Spider fought in similar regional promotions as Lee Murray. And it was in September of 2004 that Murray and Silva would meet at an event called Cage Rage 8 Nights of the Octagon. Murray put in a good account of himself, becoming one of the few men to go the distance with one of the greatest finishers the MMA has ever seen. But after 3 5-minute rounds, Murray came out as the loser. Still, his performance garnered a lot of attention, and it looked like he had the potential to become a breakout star with just a little more seasoning. Unfortunately, a tragic incident put paid to Murray's MMA career and sparked his descent back into the criminal lifestyle. Returning to London to continue his training, Murray's hectic lifestyle started to catch up with him. Though he looked every inch the disciplined martial artist in the octagon, he led a dangerous life outside of the cage. Mere months after his narrow loss to Silva, Murray instigated a road rage attack in London that led to a conviction for grievous bodily harm. Shortly after that attack, he became caught up in the police investigation of the fatal shooting of a man named Sabini Rizvi. Another man, Paul Asbury, was later convicted of the murder, though police suspected other parties, possibly Murray, were involved. Nevertheless, with no evidence to pin on Murray, the investigation ended. Seemingly unperturbed by the increasing violence creeping into his personal life, Murray continued his partying ways. While training for his next fight, which would take place exactly a year after his battle with Anderson Silva, Murray got involved in an altercation outside London's Funky Buddha nightclub. The fight ended with Murray getting stabbed multiple times, including several chest wounds, with Murray later claiming that he'd died 3 times as a result of his injuries. Though the attack didn't end his fighting career, the notoriety attached to his name did. UK-based promoters weren't willing to book a man who seemed to court danger at every turn, and his conviction for grievous bodily harm meant that a prospective $78,000 contract from the UFC was now off the table. With nowhere left to turn and his career in tatters, Murray started looking for ways to get his hands on quick cash. 5 months after receiving a near-fatal stab wound to the chest, Murray found himself leading the largest cash heist ever carried out on British soil. After several months of planning, he'd gathered a small collective of criminals together and earmarked a Securitas depot as his target. Murray took up a position in an unmarked car, keeping his eye out for the depot manager, Colin Dixon. His plan was to masquerade as a police officer, pull Dixon over, and take the unwitting manager hostage. The plan went off without a hitch. Murray's team handcuffed Dixon and drove him to a secret location where they placed the Securitas manager into a white van before moving on to an abandoned farmhouse. But kidnapping a Securitas manager wasn't enough for Murray's team. Shortly after they stashed Dixon in the farmhouse, the team left only to return with Dixon's wife and his 8-year-old son. The message was clear: comply or your family will suffer. With Dixon successfully coaxed into following along with their plan, the robbers drove to the Securitas depot that Dixon managed. Arriving at approximately 1 a.m., ensuring the depot only had a shadow crew on duty, the team put the next stage of their plan into action. One of the robbers posed as a police officer to enter the depot alongside Dixon, giving him access to the control room. The robber pulled a gun on the lone control room employee, while Dixon opened the depot's main gate. Now they had access, Murray and his team rounded up the rest of the employees at the depot, tying them up to ensure there was no chance of somebody calling the authorities or playing the hero. With the employees secured, Murray and his team loaded their van with £53 million in cash, which equaled approximately $95 million back in 2006. It took the 7-man crew just 40 minutes to clear out the depot, aided in no small part by the knowledge of a member of their gang named Emir Heisenaj. The inside man for the job, Heisenaj worked the evening shift at the depot and played a key role in shepherding the gang around the facility. Once they had the money secured, the gang began their escape. After locking up the bound and tied employees, along with Dixon and his family, in cages, the crew drove away. Were it not for the fact that Dixon's son managed to escape his confines to raise the alarm, the crime may not have been discovered until the next morning. Even so, Murray's crew had a 31-minute head start on the authorities, which gave them plenty of time to get away from the scene. Everything had gone perfectly according to Murray's plan. His team made it in and out of the depot without violence, with CCTV cameras failing to pick up any traces of any of the robbers' faces. Murray could have gotten away with his crime if only the group's post-robbery strategy was as effective as their main plan. Mistakes started to creep into the team's execution. A member of Murray's team continued to use the same cell phone he'd used during the night of the robbery, giving police a number they could track. The British public came to the police's aid as well, with one member of the public tipping the authorities off about the location of the van used in the heist. Police found over £1 million, along with equipment used in the heist, in the van. That find, coupled with the magnitude of the crime, meant that Murray soon found his carefully constructed house of cards collapsing around him. Just 10 days after the robbery, 5 of the 14-strong gang had been caught and charged. The police recovered millions of pounds during these 10 days, with the net they'd cast slowly closing in around the ringleader, Lee Murray. But Murray still had one more trick up his sleeve. His parentage meant that he held Moroccan citizenship, which Murray used to his advantage by driving from Dover in the UK, crossing the Strait of Gibraltar and entering his father's native country. There, Murray began to indulge in the playboy lifestyle he'd enjoyed during the early parts of his MMA career. And given that Morocco has no formal extradition treaty with the United Kingdom, he was confident that he wouldn't get apprehended for his crimes. The next few months were a whirlwind, with Murray blowing through the cash he'd stolen. He bought a £1 million home, spending £200,000 on upgrades that included a gym and full marble flooring. He even commissioned a giant mural of his UFC victory over Jorge Rivera, which took pride of place above his new hot tub. But unbeknownst to Murray, both London's Scotland Yard and the Kent police force were in touch with Moroccan authorities practically from the day that Murray arrived in the country. He had been under 24-hour surveillance from the moment of his arrival, with police seemingly waiting for him to indulge his spending habits to build up evidence for their case. On June 25, 2006, the police sprung their trap. Dozens of Moroccan officers converged on Rabat's mega mall, where Murray was doing some shopping, and arrested Lightning Lee and 3 of his accomplices. The Moroccan police didn't stop at arresting Murray for the Securitas raid. They swept his home and found cocaine and marijuana, an unexpected throwback to the earliest days of Murray's criminal career. Murray also faced charges for attacking the arresting officers, with the combination of drug and assault charges landing him a sentence of several months in a Moroccan jail. But the story wasn't quite over. Morocco's lack of an extradition treaty with the UK led to the country's authorities refusing to send Murray back home to face the music for his crimes. Negotiations took place, with Morocco requesting the extradition of a terrorist suspect named Mohamed Karbouzi in exchange for Murray. Scotland Yard refused, and it was decided he would face sentence in Morocco. Murray was charged for his part in the Securitas robbery in a Moroccan court. In June 2010, he received a 10-year sentence, though this was later extended to 25 years in November of the same year. Lee Murray's tale brings to mind the great train robbery that took place in Britain in the 1960s, and just like that famous crime, a combination of poor post-crime planning and extravagant living put paid to the mastermind behind the heist. It also seems that Murray may find himself romanticized on television, with Showtime's 2023 series Catching Lightning being the first in what may be several documentaries and films made about the fighter turning criminal. As for Murray himself, his story ends in a Moroccan jail, at least until his potential 2035 release. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, share and subscribe to support OCG TV. It will help us produce more in-depth content for you to enjoy.